welcome back to the end of another week. This one should be a pretty short one because nothing much is going on. The garden's a mess. I'll actually throw up a photo of what it looked like earlier this week. Yeah, there's a bunch of things coming in. There's a bunch of things that I still need to set up because I'm always running behind schedule. However, I did get around to a giant hackathon this week, and I've demolished the tomato bed. So I did leave one sungold tomato plant here with the orange tomatoes because I really like these tomatoes, and I'm giving them a little bit more time to ripen. So I've trimmed off everything that is like new growth. I'm leaving the old stuff, hoping that I get a few more. But you can see, like, it's got serious fungal issues. So I mean, obviously, like, that one's gonna get tossed. But yeah, so this is the last of the tomatoes for this season. The season did still end up being longer than last season. There's still all of the shrapnel of tomatoes that were falling off. So some of these I might be able to salvage and use to make some tomato paste or something. Over here, I started throwing some tomatoes. I meant to look up whether or not I could use the green tomatoes for anything. But ultimately, like, I have too much stuff to do, so I probably won't do anything with that this year. The beans, I'll show you a harvest that I did today. We have the green beans, the yellow wax beans, and some purple beans. And we were hoping to have a really colorful lunch, only to find out that the purple beans actually turn green once they're cooked. And I didn't know that. So, you know, you learn something new every day. I bought myself these cute little signs. I'm super excited. They're like, they're metal. They're a pretty thin metal, and they've been patinated to have this rusty color. But they're going to help me keep track of my rotation. So I've already moved them around, and it's basically like the roots that we're growing here, the garlic and the shallots and things like that. So the roots move to the fruit bed, which is why now this says roots. And then the fruits move to the brassica bed. So the fruits will move here, and this volunteer tomato decided to join the party early. But yeah, so this was my brassica bed, with the exception of this one tomato. And this will be my tomato fruit bed next year. And then the brassicas moved to where the legumes are, the beans and peas and stuff. And then the beans and peas will move over here. So this, I'll probably plant like fava beans and things like that for the winter time, and then in the spring this will be the green beans and stuff of, you know, all the stuff that I planted behind me. So I know in a small garden I don't technically have to do the crop rotation, but since I deal with the fungal issues every single year and we have pests and stuff, I'm like, why not? It's part of why I made 4 beds, so that I could do a little crop rotation if I wanted to. And I basically have it set up where they try to flop as far from each other as possible. So like this bed flopped into that bed, and then that bed alternated to this bed over here, and then that bed will flop into this bed, and then that bed alternates here. So it's not a crop rotation like just in a circle, because I was worried that the length of these beds, if I just flipped them from this side to that side, they might still be too close to each other. So everything is being flipped on its smallest adjacent side. which made sense to me. And I mean, it does make it a little bit more complicated, which is part of why I put the signs in the corners, because that way I can just kind of like swap them around. But it makes more sense if I'm trying to avoid bugs and pests and disease and all that kind of stuff. In the garden, again, not too much is happening. The contractors did come last week and worked on digging out the concrete path. Well, I mean, what will be the concrete path. So I'll throw in some photos of earlier this week. Unfortunately, they only came for one day, which is kind of typical for French stuff for some reason. But yeah, they came for a day. There's 3 of them. They dug out all the dirt. They put some of the extra rocks from the driveway work down. They will be laying rebar, and then putting the concrete down. We are just, I mean, we did tell them, and we're hoping that they make sure not to cover our sewer septic pipe cleanouts, because that would really suck. But yeah, so that's happening there. And then, I mean, lots of things got moved out of my plant alley because of the work happening. They did also dig out, I took all the mulch and moved it way down there. So I'll throw in some photos. I think I have some photos of what it looks like way down at the end of the orchard. But basically, I have gone ahead and extended the path, and I've cleared out the brambles way down there. And then over here, this is where all the mulch came from. And then they dug up the rest of the gravel that was here. And the idea is that, again, similar to the other side, like this will be a concrete slab with a gutter that goes along the house and into this drain pipe. Because long term, our plan is to actually add a greenhouse here for me. So the greenhouse would be attached to the south wall and then come out, and it would actually, the wall would be up to this wooden beam here. So my concrete thing that I'm using as a table would end up being inside the greenhouse. So because of that, I wanted to make sure that rather than just having like a drain pipe there with a tube that went down, it's actually a gutter in the concrete, because when I'm working in the future greenhouse, I want to be able to have the water run off into the gutter and then out of the greenhouse and into this. So that's kind of like, those are way long-term plans. But that's why we're doing a gutter in the concrete rather than a tube. I got around to cleaning off this. These are all the things that need to go away. This also needs to get emptied. I mean, I still need to work on these, basically. This is all the shrapnel that needs to go into compost or garbage or whatever. And then these are things that I'm keeping and I'm trying to work on. So for example, when I take my rosemary cuttings, I'm not very gentle. So I just kind of like shove them all into dirt, and obviously like a lot of them fail because I don't really know what I'm doing, but some of them make it. And then so these 4 pots, I will pull out the living ones, the ones that survived Diane, and then I will combine them into their own little pot. And then, I mean, as you can see, like this one's kind of dying back. So some of them still end up dying back, but then I get a little thing, and then after a little while, I actually get something like this, because this is one that I propagated myself. And it's been going for, I think, 2 years now. And then this was like last year's stuff, and this is this year's stuff. So playing around with that. Some of my mint that I've been working on and some other things. So that's happening there. And then if I walk you all the way up here, ta-da! I made myself a makeshift composting thing. Yeah. So I have my bins way over there. If I zoom in, you can see I have 3 bins way over there. And they're okay, but they fill up really fast, and the things just don't decompose very fast. As you can see by like the branch pile there. And now I've created another pile of all the tomato stuff that I pulled out. I know some people throw their tomato stuff away, especially if it's diseased. Unfortunately, I don't really have that luxury, because out here they don't pick up yard waste. They don't pick up trash. So if you're getting rid of anything, for example, like we have that pile that I just keep throwing garbage into. If you need to get rid of anything, you either load it up in your car and you take it to the dump, or you hire somebody to come and pick it up and take it to the dump for you. So as such, a lot of people, like this stuff, a lot of people would just burn. Francis and I haven't done any bonfires because we're just not used to it. So eventually we may bonfire that, but right now it's just kind of like in situ doing its thing. This stuff will all like decompose pretty quickly, and it gives me an excuse, like a reason to use more cardboard. So basically I have a cardboard layer, I have the tomato layer, I have a cardboard layer, I have tomato layer, and then I'll probably throw some straw on the top as a top dressing, but the worms love the cardboard. So I'm hoping that this becomes basically like a worm haven, but we'll see what happens. And then I will leave you with the squash island, and you can see why I've like isolated it way into its own thing, because for the last 2 years I've been putting these suckers in the garden, and they go hog wild, and I feel bad about like trimming them down. I mean, I do need to kind of move them out of the driveway, but I like them being in a space where they can just, be free and do their stuff. So we aren't getting any more melons. I've actually pulled out the melon vines because they were looking ugly. But we are definitely getting other winter squash. And if I like gently step in here without squishing anybody, you can see like there's a big butternut. I thought I had planted spaghetti squash, and maybe I have, and I just haven't found any yet. I thought the squash over here were spaghetti squash, but they're butternuts, or they seem to be turning into butternuts. And then over there I have my kabochas, and then I have more butternuts. So maybe I didn't plant spaghetti squash, or I don't know. I probably got confused. I am very easily confused. But I think that is it for this week. If I zoom in over there, you can see like some of them are already getting some fungal stuff going on. So I'll have to take those leaves off and hope for the best. I don't spray anything yet. I might start doing that next year, because I have been talking to some of the neighbors, and like the whole fungus is definitely a problem. And so they've been giving me like the information about what they use here traditionally to deal with the fungal things. So I may try to find some of those ingredients. I mean, some of the stuff I already have are like the copper and the sulfur sprays, which I just haven't gotten into a habit of using yet. But there's also this like Bordelaise stuff, which I guess is a mix of something, and there's some other like clays and things that they use. So I'll probably work on adding that to my regime next year. But one of the great things about gardening is that you have a year after year after year, and you can just keep improving. So I will leave you with the chickens. They're doing their chicken thing, and I hope you had a good week, and I will see you next week. Bye.